Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to show you all the books that I've acquired since my last book haul. Now that book haul wasn't too long ago. I think that it was still titled my spring book haul, and if I'm not mistaken, we're still in spring. However, I do have a quite good excuse, and that is that the majority of books that I'm going to show you are either pre-orders that I pre-ordered a while ago, or they are purchased with the holiday bonus money that I got 2 weeks ago. So of course, if I get some extra pocket money, I am going to spoil myself. What did you expect? So I am quite excited for all of these, and actually a good chunk of them I do plan to read in 2022, so I'm happy. The first one is actually a debut novel from last year that I really wanted to get to because one of my subscribers, one of you, actually recommended this to me, but it didn't happen, and now it did. And that is Daughters of Sparta by Claire Haywood. This is a Greek myth retelling. And if I'm not mistaken, in this one we follow Helen and her sister. So Helen, the most beautiful woman of the world, of course. And we follow both of them from childhood up until the point that they need to marry their husbands, and then afterwards as well. And I think that we have the two POVs. So one chapter is going to follow Helen, one chapter is going to follow her sister, and then it goes back and forth. I don't really know what to expect from this one, but I generally like myth retellings, especially when we follow women that we don't really see their own voices of in the original myths. So I'm quite excited for this one, and I do think that I am going to enjoy it. Next up, a series that I've been enjoying a lot lately, so I just wanted to have some physical copies, and that is Milazen. So I have Dead House Gates in mass market paperback right now, then we have Memories of Ice, and then the fourth book in the series is House of Chains. So I really like how these look together. I know that they're mass market paperbacks, but the majority of my physical reads happen on my e-reader anyway, so I don't really mind that they will be a pain in the butt to read if I would read them through paperbacks. I'm not going to, so I don't really mind. I do have the first book, Gardens of the Moon, in the large edition. How do they call it? The large paperbacks, and I don't really know if it's going to be very pretty on the shelves, but we're going to roll with it. And I do want to, of course, collect more of them, but since I have only read Dead House Gates so far, I still need to read these two. I'm just going to buy them in small chunks because you never know when a series is no longer to your liking. So I have burnt myself on Wheel of Time, where I bought all of them in hardcover editions, and then at book 4, I decided that I didn't want to continue, so I'm just buying them in smaller chunks. But yes, I do think that I am going to continue with the entire series, so happy with that. Then next up, I have a couple of seconds in a series where I haven't read the first book yet, but all of these series are on my 2022 TBR, and at the very least, I want to read the first 2 books in that series this year, so I decided why not just buy the second one. And yes, I do know that since I read all of them on ebook, I don't really need to buy them already. I haven't really figured it out yet how I can justify this, but I'm happy with it, and that's all that matters. The first one is A Fortress of Grey Ice, which is the second book in the Sword of Shadows series by J.V. Jones. Now, this one has been often recommended to me as if you want something like A Song of Ice and Fire, read this one. Now, I know that all the books that are currently being published in the fantasy genre are being compared to A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin, so usually I don't really trust that. However, this has been said by people who are well known in the fantasy genre and who say this one. With this one, it's true. With the other ones, it might not be true, but this one, sure. Now, very similar to George R. R. Martin's masterpiece, and I do hope that this is not why they made the comparison. We only have 4 books in the series so far, and the first one, I think, has not been coming out for years at this point. I think that the fourth one maybe came out in 2010, something like that. So maybe the series will never be finished. However, I have heard some very hopeful things, and I don't really care if a series is not finished. If people are going to tell me that the first 4 books are absolute masterpieces, I'm going to read those 4 books, and if the 5th one never gets announced, that's fine. I had a great time. So the second book is already quite thick. It's 700 plus pages, so this is definitely a series that even if only 4 books are out, I do think that I will have to take my time with this one. But I'm very excited for, like I said, a Song of Ice and Fire-esque read. Now, the same thing has actually been said for the next series, so I don't really know how much is true. I hope that it's not a too classic fantasy series, which is often not to my liking, but if it does have a lot of political intrigue, I'm probably going to like it, and that is the second book here is Prince of Dogs by Kate Elliott, and this is the Crown of Stars series. Now, I think this one actually has 6 books in the main series, and I think that this series is actually completely finished. So at least there's that. And I absolutely love these covers. They are definitely very old school. I think that it's just out of frame, but the first one is also this pretty. I really love this. I can already imagine how all of them will look on my shelves. But this is also a pretty big series. This one is 600 plus pages, but like I said, 6 books in total. I actually don't really know a lot about these two series other than that people compared them to Song of Ice and Fire, so I do expect multiple POVs, I do expect definitely some political intrigue and probably pretty low on the magic, but no idea. The next series I do know a little bit more about, and that is The Splinter King. So this is the second book by the series by Mike Brooks, which is called The God King Chronicles. Now, of course, if a series has God in the title, I'm going to pick it up because that sounds awesome. The first book is actually called The Black Coast. It has a beautiful cover as well. And I am going to read that one this year and this one as well. And I think that the third book has already been announced. It's a trilogy, so that means that the series will be concluded either this year or next year. Now, from what I've heard is that, first of all, we have a Viking culture among the different cultures that we follow in this series, and I love that, and I also love when we have different cultures. And I think that we have an army that is invading, and this makes that Viking culture flee, which sounds pretty badass and pretty intense. So I have heard that the first book is amazing, and then the second book suffers a little bit from middle book syndrome, but I still have heard from a lot of people that it's still enjoyable. So I hope just that in general I will like these first 2 books, and then we will see when the third one comes out. Also, I have already seen that we have like a small sneak peek, the first chapter, I think, from The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now, John Gwynne, I have been burned by John Gwynne before. I didn't really like his first series with Malice and everything after that, the Fateful and the Fallen series. But I have heard that a lot of people who don't like that series actually really like his third series, which starts with The Hunger of the Gods. So now I have the first chapter. Let's see if his writing style actually did improve up to a point that I like it. Then I decided to pick up some shorter fantasy books to read in between all of these big series, and I actually picked 4, and I think that all of them are also fairy tales, either original or retellings, so I'm quite excited to have them. I think that I might do a reading vlog for all of them and then have my experiences shared, because I think that each of them I can read either within 24 or 48 hours, so that would be fun little vlogs, I think, to share with all of you. The first one I'm so happy that I finally have, and that is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. Now, The Last Unicorn was my favorite movie as a kid. Whenever I went to the store to lend a movie, yes, lending video cassettes was a thing back then, and I always picked The Last Unicorn. Always. And my dad kept asking me, don't you want to watch a different movie? You've seen this one 50 times. But I just loved it so much that I always want to see it again. It's so magical. I love the story. I love the message. I loved The Last Unicorn. And I just wanted to see it every time. And I had no idea that it was based on a book. So when I found out, I just wanted to have it. So this is probably one that I will read fastest of all. Whenever I can squeeze it in my schedule, and I will probably put it on my June TBR already, I will read it, and then I will watch The Last Unicorn and have a beautiful moment of nostalgia. Then next, I have an author that I wanted to try for 2 years at this point. He has written a ton. There's no reason that I still haven't given him a chance yet, but it will happen soon. Now I finally have one of his works. And that is Neil Gaiman, and I chose to go with Stardust because this is a fairy tale. I think that it's an original fairy tale, but I have seen a ship on the cover, and now I'm starting to guess maybe it's Peter Pan inspired. I have no idea why, but this... Probably because it's also green, and I always connect Peter Pan with green. I think that it's original. It's only 200 pages, so I decided why not give him a try with a short book. If I don't like it, no pressure. And if I do, I know that I have a very big backlog of this author to get through. Then next, an author that I actually have given a try. I think that I discovered her a year ago, and I really enjoyed the 2 books that I've read by her so far, so I wanted to go with the third one. And that author is Patricia A. McKillop, and the book that I went with is The Book of Atrix Wolf. So Patricia A. McKillop writes a lot of original fairy tales. She has written probably close to 30, maybe more than that, and all of them I've heard amazing things of. I think that her trilogy of The Riddle Master is like her magnus opus that a lot of people say is her best work, but I'm enjoying her fairy tale standalone so much that I decided to save that one for a rainy day, so to speak. So this one, if I'm not mistaken, we follow a wizard who helped stop a war with his magic, but while doing so, his king also died. So he decided to go in the woods and live together with the wolves, but then his queen asks him to help them again because the princess is missing? It's something like that. Anyway, I trust Patricia A. McKillop at this point to write beautiful fairy tales, so I just know that I'm going to love this one. And this is also one of her shorter works. I think that all of them are actually quite short, but this one is 240 pages, so definitely, again, one that I can read rather quickly. And then lastly, an author that I have read one book of last year, absolutely loved that one, and then decided that I'm going to read more of her works. And that is, again, T. Kingfisher. Now, I have read The Raven and the Reindeer by her, which was a Snow Queen retelling, and then Brownie and Roses is actually a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's just as short, it's 216 pages. I actually have a new release by her, Nettle and Bone, on my TBR. I don't think that I will be able to read it this month, but I want to read it next month then, if I can fit it in. But that's an original fairy tale, while this and The Raven and the Reindeer are both retellings. I think that I will love this one, and if not, I can always resell it, but I have very high hopes for this author. I've heard a lot of great things, that if you like one of her works, she's actually very consistent in terms of quality. And then lastly, a book that I have already read. This was a pre-order and I read it already, so I'm doing quite good with the pre-order thing. And that is Kaikai by Vaishnavi Patel. So this is an Indian myth retelling. In this one we follow Kaikai, who is a vilified queen. And I really enjoyed this one. I'm so happy that I pre-ordered it, that I now have it to put on my shelves, because it's a beautiful edition. I don't know if you can see, but it has some gold foiling around her jewelry. And in general, I just really enjoyed this book. It does have deckled edges. I'm not really a fan of that, but since I don't really read physical copies anyway, I also don't really mind too much, you could say. But highly recommend this one if you like myth retellings. Then I have a collection, a bind-up, you could say, that I don't really know a lot about other than that it's a classic in fantasy. And that is Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melnibone, if that's how you pronounce it. This is the first volume of the Elric saga. I think that we're going to have 3 volumes in total. The first 2 are currently out and they have the main story. And then the third volume that's going to come out later this year, I think has a collection of short stories. Now, the reason why I want to read this one is because I have heard that Geralt of Rivia, who is the main character or one of the main characters in the Witcher series, is actually based upon Elric. So I want to see where the similarities lie, if I can see the connection between the two. And I also think that if I like Geralt, I will probably like Elric as well, and as a character-driven reader, this will probably mean that I like this series. So let's give it a try. Also, I really like that this was not expensive, or not more expensive than other hardcover editions, but we have some really nice art here. It's not that much, it's just in the middle. This is all that there is to it, but it's all in full color and it's on nice paper. So I do think that that's a nice extra that they didn't need to do, so I'm quite happy with that. Now, I'm first going to try this one. If I like it, I'm going to buy the other volumes as well. Then I, of course, need to share the beautiful gift that I got from my friend Safina. She actually gifted me an entire trilogy, the Soldier's Son trilogy by Robin Hobb. So we have Shaman's Crossing, which is the first book. Then we have Forest Mage, which is the second book. And then the last one is Renegade's Magic. So these are going to look so pretty on the shelves. I do have them out of order now, but look at that. It's going to be so pretty. Also, I think that it will fit with the UK paperbacks. I don't own them yet because I have like all of the Dutch ones here behind me, but I do plan to buy the UK ones. And I think that then I will have a very nice shelf of all of my Robin Hobb works. Now, I don't really know a lot about the Soldier's Son trilogy. I know that some people love it. Other people don't like it as much as the Realm of the Elderlings. I don't really know what to expect. I know that a lot of people didn't like the Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobb in the Realm of the Elderlings, and I'm loving that one. So maybe I'm not as picky and I'm going to like this series as well. I have actually quite high hopes, especially because some booktubers that I trust do love the Soldier's Son trilogy and are telling me that I'm going to cry my eyes out, which I quite enjoy from time to time, so I'm not complaining here. And again, of course, thank you, Safina, for this beautiful gift. I'm going to read it probably next year because I plan to finish the Realm of the Elderling series this year. Next up, I have a book that is already on my TBR, on my July TBR to be specific, because I'm going to read this together with a couple of people. If you want to join in this buddy read, you're more than welcome to do so. Please let me know. And that is For Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. So this is the history book set in the world of Westeros, taking place 300 years before the events that occur in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. Now, if you don't know, there is a TV show coming at the end of August, so I definitely want to read the book before I watch the TV show. So if we start in July and we go through it quite slowly, because as a history book, I'm not going to binge this, but just a couple of pages every evening, I do think that I will be ready for the show. And if anything, as a Song of Ice and Fire fan, it's my favorite series of all time. It was my #1 on my favorites list. It's really a shame that I haven't read this one yet, so I need to change that ASAP. Next, I have purchased another book 2 in a series where I haven't read the first one yet. However, I do plan to binge this entire trilogy on audiobook this year. And that is the Queens of Francesca trilogy by Sarah Beth Durst. So this is the second book, The Reluctant Queen. The Queen of Blood, I think, is the first one, and I have somewhere on my shelves here. Now, Sarah Beth Durst is an author that I discovered last year. I read 2 of her standalones, and Raise the Sands especially was one that I really enjoyed. So I want to continue my journey with her. These are books that read quite fast, so I do think that I can get through the entire trilogy, just 1 book per month. If I'm not mistaken, here we have nature-based magic, which I absolutely love. We have people who live in the woods, and these woods are magical. We have spirits, but actually these spirits are malevolent, so they try to attack the humans. Luckily, the humans have a queen who is powerful enough to keep the spirits at bay. But then this queen gets sick and dies. I think that that's the premise of the story. And that sounds very interesting. I love nature-based magic. I love books that take place in a forest, so I'm all here for it. Next, I have another book that I already read. Again, I'm doing quite well with reading books somewhat close to the time that I buy them. That's not true for all of them. At least some. And that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So of course this is a Greek myth retelling. It retells Achilles and what he does in the Trojan War, but here we follow the story from the POV of Patroclus. Now, I was not blown away by this book. I still really enjoyed it, especially the beginning and the ending. I think that it lost some momentum in the middle and it had some pacing issues there, but all in all, I really enjoyed this one. I still think that I like Circe more, but if Madeline Miller comes out with a new book, I'm going to buy that one straight away. And then a new release that I got in the mail Saturday. So apart from my big book buying splurge, this one arrived as well. And that is The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This is the first one in the trilogy, which I didn't know. I thought that this was a standalone, but it's the first one in the Sandsea trilogy. Now, I think that this one has retellings of the 1001 Nights, and that sounds amazing, but that's all I know. And I could be completely wrong. But it had that vibe, if I'm not mistaken. And I have heard, so far, pretty good things. So I am going to read this one soon. If you don't know, new releases are the things that I prioritize to have a review out on the channel, at least within the first couple of months that it came out. So that's coming your way, definitely, especially because I'm so intrigued. After reading Kaikai and some other myth retellings, I don't think that this is a myth retelling per se, but it is in the same vein. So very excited to pick this one up. So those are all of the books that I have acquired in the last couple of months. Please let me know what you think of them. Have you read any of them, or are they on your TBR? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't seen my last book haul, by the way, that was just a couple of weeks ago, I will link that right here so you can watch it if you haven't seen enough books already. As always, I hope that you enjoyed this video and see you next time. Bye!